Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. Today we're basically talking about a controller's arm race that is happening within fighting games. So in the near future, well, we're basically starting a whole new generation of fighting games over again. I'm talking stuff like Street Fighter 6, I'm talking Tekken 8, Project L, the League of Legends fighting game, probably Mortal Kombat 12, and who knows what else is coming out, right? And when there is new fighting games, well, people are in the demand for new controllers. Plenty of people are happy with just your stock PlayStation or Xbox pad or whatever, but some people, hardcore fighting game players are in for more specialty products. And well, specialty products is definitely what the fighting game community has to offer, right? You can find all sorts of controllers all over the place, from your standard arcade sticks to, well, let's talk about hitboxes and other leverless controllers. So the Hitbox, you've probably seen it, you've probably heard about it. If you look at, say, the most recent EVO outing, EVO 2022, specifically Street Fighter, the top 8, most of the controllers were, well, leverless controllers, Hitbox-style controllers. And I feel like that's only going to get more and more prevalent as time goes on. Now, why is that exactly? Are they just better? Are they cheater boxes like some people say? Well, in some ways, yeah, kind of. Honestly, yeah. In a lot of ways, a Hitbox has a lot of advantages over a more traditional style of arcade stick or normal controller. So for the more uninitiated, if you don't really know why these devices are so powerful, let me talk about them for a little bit. If you're an old vet, you already know the whole deal. You know all about the shortcuts, SOCD, all that kind of stuff. I'll have timestamps, you can skip forward to the next section. But for now, before we get into the meat of Hitbox style controllers, other leverless style controllers, and the arms race that's sort of happening between them here, let's show you why these things are so good. So here we are with the Hitbox controller. You probably heard about it, you've probably seen it, and it's the standard now for leverless controllers, although we will show other style of leverless controllers later in the video. So why is it the big thing? Well, the big fancy red buttons, those are your directions, right? Left, right, down, and up. This big button here, as you can see, it's smaller buttons than usual compared to most arcade stick buttons. The big one here is up, and there's a reason for it, because the way you want to hold this is left hand is control, right hand is your various buttons, right? And both fingers, or rather both thumbs, can access the jump button. So for either hand, regardless of how you're playing, you can always access jump. Now, just because it's digital doesn't mean anything's like particularly more difficult to do. Like fireballs are fine, no big deal. Hurricane kick, sure. And even a Shoryuken, oh, how hard would it be on this kind of controller? Pretty easy, honestly, not a big deal. Even though the motion is, forward, down, down, forward, it's really simple as forward, down, and then down, forward, hitting at the same time here. And then you get a Shoryuken. Easy peasy. Now, if it was just that, it wouldn't be too much to write home about, honestly. Like, not too different than playing on a keyboard. But the thing is, there's a lot of fun tricks. One of them is SOCD, simultaneous opposing cardinal directions. Like, hey, if I hold left and if I hold right at the same time, well, the game doesn't let you do that, right? As you can see here, I just stay in place. But the thing is, there's tricks around it. Now, as you can see here on the left, you can see my inputs, right? And once again, if I hold two directions that oppose each other at the same time, no go. Although if you hold down and up at the same time, it will always prioritize up, which is very good if you're like a charge character like Guile in Street Fighter or Leo in Guilty Gear. That means you can kind of just sit and be lazy and then hit up and a button at the same time and you'll get your flash kick style move. But for left and right, no dice, right? But there is tech just in and of itself, like Street Fighter. If I hit forward and I hit back at the same time, it ends my input. And if I let go of, say, left, I'll keep moving forward again. But you might notice here, it's giving me a new input of forward. What does that mean? Well, what that means, so if I were to basically plink my motions here, so I'll hit forward, hit back, let go back really quick. What's going to happen is this. It dashed. Why? Because holding both buttons returns to neutral, right? So that means forward, neutral, forward with a new input. So all of a sudden, you get quick forward dashes, quick back dashes, all that kind of stuff. And that's the power of SOCD. And there's obviously a lot more tricks yet. Like the Shoryuken we mentioned earlier, right? So we can hit forward, down, down, forward, and we will get our Shoryuken, right? A nice proper Shoryuken. But Street Fighter inputs are kind of lenient, and it lets you mess around with them a little bit. For most people here, the Shoryuken, when you're on the player 1 side, it's not that big of a deal. But the thing is, when you're on the player 2 side and you got to start using your ring finger, which for the most part isn't as strong as your index finger, it can be just a little bit slower. But thankfully, we got all these shortcuts here. So let's show you a couple examples. One is simply holding forward and then hitting down and letting go and then hitting punch. And you get a Shoryuken. Why? Because forward, when you hit down, that puts it as down forward. And when you let go, then it's forward again. Because as far as Street Fighter is concerned and other fighting games are concerned here, forward, down, forward, forward is close enough for the input. And then all of a sudden here, that works, right? So you don't got to do the proper motion. And then also for player 2 with your ring finger, that's just honestly kind of easier. Also another shortcut motion here. So let's say you're holding down forward, you let go forward and hit it again. So it'll be down, forward, down, down, forward. And once again, as far as the game's concerned, close enough, right? It'll give it to you. Now, there is straight up cheater motions. Like one big example here. This is what we call the 6-3-9 motion. So forward, down, forward, up, forward. And up, forward, I know, has no part of the DP motion. But once again here, input leniency. And when you know it. And the thing about this motion specifically, it's the fastest possible input for an uppercut here. You can basically do it in 3 frames. The forward, down, forward, up, forward frames. And the way the input buffer works and the way simultaneous opposing cardinal directions work, when you're already holding down, you just hit up. You don't have to let go of the button here. And you get your easiest Shoryuken ever. Now, here's the thing. This works in like other fighting games, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5, other fighters. This specifically does not work in Street Fighter 6. They definitely took it out because it's a little too easy, a little too strong. But the other methods still work fine in Street Fighter 6. So ease of use and shortcuts, basically, right? Like playing a charge character on a hitbox style controller is a dream. It's so easy. Like to do charges, all I gotta do is basically something like that. And once again, when you hold down back and you hit up, well, you jump. So that means all of a sudden here, flash kicks are as easy as that. You never have to let go of the buttons. You hit up and a kick or whatever, and easiest flash kicks ever. And also, this isn't gameplay or anything, but the thing here with these style of controllers is they're much easier on the wrist, right? When you play on stick, you're doing this all the time, non-stop. Well, especially if you're playing like me, play grapplers. You're doing a lot of this and mashing your 720s, right? But you're just moving around, and this, it's just your fingers, right? No big deal. You don't have to engage your wrist. If you're like me and you have a wrist that's on the go, this is definitely a great thing. So comfort, ease of use, just general play is good. All sorts of input shortcuts and tricks as we went over here. Things that make your moves easier to do. Some almost even straight up unfair, right? But at least Street Fighter 6 will be taking care of the greater excesses of that. But there's a lot of reasons to use this style of controller. Now, for so long, the Hitbox style of controller was basically the main game in town unless you wanted to make one yourself, right? But this is where the Hitbox wars, the leverless controller wars are coming in because there is now a lot more alternatives. So now let's talk about the arms race, if you will. This style of controller, the Hitbox specifically, has proven itself time and time and time again. It works, and it's only getting more and more popular. And of course, when something gets popular, it will spawn competition. Other people will want to get in, and well, we have a lot of other viable contenders. So say, take this controller here. It is a great controller, and I recommend it if you can ever get your hand on one right here. But one of the things I can definitely hold against it is, well, doesn't work on PS5 games on PS5. So if I try to boot up Guilty Gear here, it tells me to screw off, basically. The Hitbox is a great controller, and it will work on pretty much anything you try it, except for specifically PS5 games on PS5. It'll play PS4 games on PS5, yes, 100%, but not for modern stuff. Now, they are working on a fix, just to be fair. They are working on a fix, but that is not live yet. That'll be sometime down the road in the future. Other styles of controllers, well, that's already fixed. It's a non-issue. So let me showcase you some other leverless controllers besides the main Hitbox. So here is another leverless style of controller. This is the Furin FRS. And as you can tell, well, besides the color scheme, it's a bit different. So as far as like the art goes, this is custom art. This is what you see at the end of my videos on the channel here. You got your little monkey man here and Ryu walking off into the sunset like a Street Fighter 2 ending, right? So the look, well, you get to choose the look. It can be whatever you want to be. That's part of the charm of this style of controller, is you get to customize the art on it. Now, the big thing is you might notice the buttons. So we still have our smaller style buttons like a Hitbox controller here, but these buttons here, they're larger. They're like a regular arcade stick style of buttons here in terms of the size. 24 millimeters versus 30 millimeters. Now, as far as other things go, like the layout's roughly the same. You know, you still have your movement here. This is still up. These are still your tacks. All here is like, you know, PlayStation button, L3, R3, touchpad, all that kind of stuff up top. A lot of other leverless style controllers, depending on the make, you'll find these in different places. Now, one thing that's very different you might find here is when we go to boot up Guilty Gear, it's not going to give us that message because the Furin FRS does work on PlayStation 5 games on PS5. So the Furin works perfectly fine on PS5 games because there is a specific board inside of it that lets it work on PS5 games, unlike the regular Hitbox. So when you go outside the regular Hitbox, these are some of the advantages you can get. Some, not all, leverless controllers will work on PS5 games natively. Now, if you play on like PS5 or something, like, it's not that big of a deal, I suppose. But if you're on console, it is a pretty big deal. Also, due to the board it's on, not only does it work on PS5, it works on like Xbox 360, Xbox One, it works on Switch, it works on all sorts of systems, right? But for the FGC, especially going into the future, PS5 is the important one. Now, one thing to go back to, for this controller here, we mentioned how the buttons are different here, like smaller buttons, big buttons. It's one of the things you actually get to mix and match, because that is one of the specialties of the Furin FRS. Not only do you get to choose big buttons, little buttons, like this could be little or big, these can be little or big, you know, both little, both big, whatever you want, right? I like little on this side, big on this side. You also get to choose layouts. Like this can be a WASD style of layout, as you can see here. And you can have that straight, you can have that slanted, you can have that button WASD style, or like just actual keys, like a keyboard if you'd like. On the right display, once again, you have large or big options, whatever you want, your choice. And another very big thing is, well, you might notice these caps here. Well, they're not normal arcade style buttons. These are actually micro switches, like in a mechanical keyboard. So as you can see here, I popped off the up button cap here, and yes, it is a micro switch. And it works just like a mechanical keyboard. So not a traditional arcade style of button. Also, if you're into that whole scene here, there's all sorts of switches to pick from, but I'm a little bit more of a layman, so if you're into it, you already know, and if you don't, then don't worry about it too much. Also, if you're like me and you play on your lap, right? This also, the Furin FRS has a very nice little feature in that it does have memory foam on the bottom. So basically, it doesn't slip out of your lap, right? I know that's not a huge Titanic deal to some, but if you play on your lap a lot like me, trust me, it's a very nice thing to have. Very good. So basically, in the arms race of leverless controllers, this is another option available to you besides the base Hitbox. The base Hitbox, still very good. I like it, but I like this one just a little bit more. The dimensions are a little bit better here. Here's a picture of it compared to a regular Hitbox. It is not as wide, but it is a little bit taller, and for me, it gives me more room to just rest my wrists, and I like it a little bit more that way. Now, when it comes to getting more custom-made hitboxes, there's definitely other options out there. There's the Empress, there's all the Junk Food Arcade options, but for me, the Furin FRS is the way to go. I like it a lot. From the customization you can do to it, just the general layout, the hand space, just the button, very little clutter here. It's, for me, a very strong package. Now, that said, though, the Hitbox is not an official product, right? It's made by the community, if you will. Same thing with this, same thing with all the others, but there is one officially Sony licensed Hitbox style of controller out there. So this big guy is the Victrix FS-12, and yes, I had to zoom the camera out to fit the whole thing in. If you want to see it compared to the other controllers mentioned in this video, it's a lot bigger. In fact, you may have seen this form factor before, because this is the same form factor as the Victrix arcade stick. And the Victrix arcade stick, as far as regular arcade sticks go, to me, is best in class. Always has been. I love that arcade stick. So, beautiful shade of color. I like purple. This is metal, not plastic. So, it's definitely a lot heavier than the other sticks, but it's also very sturdy. You have all sorts of room just to rest your hand on it. Like for me, resting my hand, due to my wrist problems is a big deal. And when it comes to just space, area, real estate, when I'm just resting your hands, it also has a very gentle curve downwards. This is definitely the best in class. Now, as far as the layout, all the other stuff goes, it's about the same, you know. You got your movement here, you got your buttons here. It is smaller buttons only, you don't get to customize it like the Furin FRS. Also, in case you're ever confused, left, down, right, up, it'll definitely show you what the buttons are. And once again, this is an officially licensed Sony product. This is not a custom build, right? You got your PlayStation button here. You got a big old touchpad here. All the buttons here, they're there. Now, using the Victrix layout, it is lacking an L3, R3. You do have the Pro button, and you can customize it so the Pro button is L3 or R3, but unfortunately not both. But it's big, it's large, it's in charge, it's very handy. It plays good. There's all the room in the world to move your hands. I love that a bit. Just however you want to hold it, however you want to manipulate the device, you got tons of room for it. It's a very good travel device as well, as you can always just pop open the back and just see whatever you need to see inside. However you want to customize the guts, you don't got to unscrew stuff or anything. You just pop it open. It's really that simple. Just like all the other controllers here, you get to do everything you get to do with the previous ones. All the movement, all the shortcuts, all the gimmicks, everything is still there. As far as just controlling stuff, it is easy as ever. It affords you all the same strengths as all the other controllers do, just a much larger frame. And once again, these are just examples of a very large pool of controllers and even more coming. With the coming of the new games, the next generation of fighting games, there's a lot of controllers. Like regular arcade sticks, yeah, there's going to be a lot more of those too as well. In fact, there's some forbidden sticks, if you will, that try to make a hybrid of the Hitbox style of controller and an arcade stick. We have a video on that if you want to check that out. As the future goes on for fighting games, this style of controller here, the Hitbox style, the Leverless controller style, you're going to see it more and more and more. One, it's effective. Like some people, they just want whatever edge they can get. And frankly, these controllers absolutely offer you an edge. Due to the unique control scheme, the way they let you manipulate inputs on the basic level, certain games allow for, you know, suspect inputs that let you really mess around with how the game works. Also, the future of, well, you know, health, I guess you could say. It is just much less stressful on your joints or your digits or your wrists. It's just like a keyboard, right? So you don't have to engage as much. A lot of people are getting older, like myself. I got the wrist problems, all that, right? And this is a step in that direction where I don't have to burn out my wrist anymore. Playing on a normal arcade stick, even though I grew up with it, it is my, well, normally preferred style of play. I realize that there might be a limit to it because on extended play sessions, I find my left wrist hurting, and that's no good. Versus this style of controller, it is practical. In terms of if you're getting older, if you have any wrist or joint pain or whatever, this definitely can alleviate it or just eliminate it entirely. So gameplay power and comfort is a pretty powerful combo. The classic Hitbox style of controller is absolutely the gold standard right now, and we have more and more and more other just competitors entering the market here, and they all offer their own take on that style of controller. So whatever specific brand you want to go with, there's plenty of options. Like once again, for myself, the Furin FRS, for me, is definitely, I think, what I'll be going forward with in the future, but you have tons of options available for you. So that all said, this is basically just a heads up of why these controllers are so popular, some of the specific brands that are out there, and once again, you're just going to see more and more of these in the future. So if you already have a Hitbox, tell me your experiences in the comments, or if you're thinking about switching over to a Hitbox or Leverless style controller, let me also know what you think in the comments, and otherwise, well, we're at the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.